in this case, the concern was that when you when you entered into an agreement, yeah, some of these agreements could run into a lot of pages, yeah, 20 pages, 30 pages, 40 pages, and the way these transactions would get registered in the SRO office initially was that they were copied. So, you had a document done. When you took it for registration, they would take that document, they would copy it into the register. Yeah? So, it would take a lot of time because you did not have a lot of copywriters. And then after some time, what happened was you started microfilming it, but microfilming equipment was not very easy to install in a sub registrar office. So, in one district there was our archive department, and all these documents were taken to that facility for microfilming, and so there was a lag, sometimes up to 2 to 3 months, in you getting back your original document. So, you had entered into a transaction, you had got it registered, but getting back the original document would take anywhere between 2 to 3 months. And because there was so much of to and fro involved, sometimes you would lose that document. Yeah? So, that was a big concern in the system. Yeah? So, roughly again around the late 90s, when the scanning technology became say or started proliferating, it was felt that it's easy to get the document scanned, and that would be fast enough, and we can then return it back to the citizens. So, at least we will take care of that aspect of inconvenience that the citizens are going through. Yeah? And that is what this project is doing. Yeah? So, this is from a sub registrar's office. Not all the sub registrar offices look like this. I am sure some of the sub registrar offices in urban areas that you have gone to look slightly better, at least in terms of the space that is available, but this is in a taluk in Tumkur called Pavgada, which is largely rural kind of taluk, but this is what happens there. So, you have a workstation and you have an operator, you take your document there, yeah? Your document gets, there is a basic entry form and that gets entered there. They based on the value of the transaction, is a registration fees and stamp duty that is levied. You are expected to pay those charges, and once you have done that and once the sub registrar has approved, the document gets scanned and you get your document back. Yeah? So, this is what this project is doing. Now, if you look at this project from the broader property transaction process, yeah, because this is a part, the property registration is not a standalone activity. It is valuable in the, when you are looking at or when you are considering the overall property transaction process. Yeah. I as a buyer want to sell my property, you as a seller want to buy that property. Yeah. I as a seller want to sell that a property, you as a buyer want to buy that property, and we want to ensure that it's a fair transaction between us. That is something that has as great a value to us as buyers and sellers as the time that it takes for me to get that document back. In fact, in certain cases in the longer term, I might be willing to wait for 5 days to get that document back, if it comes with a greater guarantee that the transaction is legally secure. The property that I claim is owned by me is actually owned by me, and if the state, because it has access to a lot of data about that property, about the history of that property, about me as a buyer, about you as a seller, can invoke all that access to data and then tell me, no, this transaction seems to be legally valid. If it were to do that, 2 days, 5 days, 10 days, 20 days, 5 hours is not at all a concern. Yeah? But in the choice of technology, what was considered relevant or what was considered important was not that aspect in the property transaction process, but this convenience or efficiency in terms of returning the document. Not that is not a that's not a valid concern, or that may not be a valid way of looking at it, but in the process you have left out certain things which could also be of value to a lot of buyers and sellers, sometimes even more. Who will it be a greater value to someone who is able to navigate through the complex relationships and structures of the state. Yeah? I know English, I have studied till a particular standard. I know people who, the officers who sit in those offices. Yeah? I will have greater access to what the state's data. Yeah? I am a farmer, I do not know English, I probably do not have a lot of money, I do not have the kind of contacts that one of my urban counterparts has in the sub-registrar office. I will not have access to that kind of data. Yeah? So, I as a rural farmer expects that service. I may be willing to wait for 10 days for my document to come back. Yeah? But if it comes back with a greater say guarantee from the state that what you are engaging in looks to be legally valid, that is a greater value for me. Yeah? Someone else who is working in say one of the companies down the road and has to take a day off and is not willing to do that, yeah, would value the say, oh, I go there only once, get it done, and I do not have to take a day off. Yeah. For that person, because anyway that person has greater access to the state and its databases, existing databases, whether they are digital or otherwise, yeah, would not value that as much, because they would have mechanisms to ensure that the legal validity can be figured out to a reasonable extent. Yeah. So, certain groups and what they value could get reflected in technology designs, and that is what here also what we are trying to see is, just as in the case of PDS and in the case of Bhoomi, there are certain groups whose voices get heard more or get considered more while you design technologies. Yeah? Nothing to say that is the only way technology should be designed. Yeah? You can always design a technology whereby you can think of linking these different databases, you can think of linking the land conversion plans, that is very important. I want to know whether the builder, the land that the builder is selling to me does this have a residential permission or not. Yeah? So, that the builder has access to, I as a buyer may not. Yeah? But the state definitely knows this. The state, one of the BDA or the Urban Development Authority or someone who is sanctioned it definitely has access to that data. Yeah? So, that could be of value, and digital technologies can be designed to factor in that value in terms of their design, and then while they maybe do not consider something as important. Yeah? So, end of it, what I am trying to invoke is that technology designs are political. Technology designs and various other designs, yeah, they are political, and they are political in this sense. We include something, we exclude something. What we include depends on what we consider as valuable, what we exclude depends on what we do not consider as valuable. Yeah? So, we do not consider this as valuable, we do not consider this as valuable, we consider this as valuable. So, therefore, we include that in our design of technology. Yeah? So, one of the takeaways is that, yeah, so we'll probably skip this because we are all more or less there. So, the takeaways is that technology designs are political. So, how do you react to this? As any technology, yeah, there are a few technologies. We have, or somehow in our education system or in our social system, we are led to believe that anything to do with politics is bad. Are we not? Yeah. Oh, don't indulge in politics is what we are told. But what do? Yeah. With all things of everything that can be apolitical. Technology definitely is considered the most neutral, or IT is a very neutral kind of tool. Yeah? IT technology is a neutral tool, nothing to do with politics. There is only way in which it can happen. It's up to the people to decide what to do with it. Yeah? But when we are doing all that, we are all doing politics. We are including, we are excluding, that is what we are all doing, and there is no harm in acknowledging that. So, as technology designers, we have to understand that politics is as integral to designing as could be anything else. Yeah? And there are so many other examples. Yeah? In agriculture, there is E-Trade, DBT, MCTS, UID, digital finance, all of that. Yeah? We can get into all these. Quickly on the development priorities of the Indian state, this is something that we have all signed. So, as a country we have agreed, we are signatory to the SDGs. So, I will go with this. I will go with, as a country we want no poverty, we want zero hunger, we want clean water and sanitation, responsible consumption and production. All of that is what all of us have signed as a country and as a global community. So, not only as a national community, as a global community, all of us, almost 175 odd countries, have signed on something like this. Yeah? Now, this 5-year plans exist no more, but very recently the last 5-year plan, this is what it talked about. It said faster, sustainable and more inclusive growth. Yeah? So, our development mantra, and we are not very like, even when the government has changed, I do not think the new government is saying that no, we are not trying to do this. Yeah? We are saying sabka saath, sabka vikas, we are saying we want to grow. Yeah? That is what we are trying to do. Yeah? So, faster, sustainable and more inclusive growth is again something that is driving our development priorities, and then it should result in lower incidence of poverty, broad based significant improvements in health outcomes, all of that. Yeah? Even the Prime Minister talks of good governance as transparent and accountable, bring government closer to our citizens so that they become active participants in the governance process. Transparency, accountability, participation, yeah, these are still valued in our inclusive, faster and sustainable growth dialogues. Anything that you want to, you are concerned with at this point, apart from the fact that we are running behind schedule? Okay, so a slight detour. Some of you would probably know this, so I'll run through this quickly. This is how the world's wealth is shared amongst its population. This is World Economic Forum 2016 data. This is actually less than $10,000. Yeah? So, 71% of the population, and the wealth is defined as all the financial marketable value of financial assets plus non-financial assets, principally housing and land owned by an adult, less all the debts that he or she would have. Yeah? So, 71% of the world's population owns 3% of the world's wealth, 0.7% of the world's population owns 45% of the world's wealth in 2016. This is the global IT industry, again I think 2016 data. This is the estimated revenue at constant prices, encompasses hardware, software, services, telecom. So, broadly the IT industry, it is reflective of the consumption of IT. Yeah? So, we are taking this as most of the IT is being consumed here, almost 1/3 of the world's IT is being consumed in North America, 1/4 is being consumed in Western Europe. Yeah? The rest of the world, this one is a high figure because you also have Japan and Australia, some of these countries, China to a certain extent. here, but it is fair to say that most of the IT consumption is happening in North America and Europe, Western Europe. One of the greatest consumers of IT, this is what it looks like. Yeah? If the landmass were, and this is from the Occupy Wall Street movement, yeah? If it were divided like its wealth, this is what 40% would own, yeah? This dot, yeah? And this is what 1% would own. Western Europe, UK, one of the poster childs there, who gained most from increase in wealth during this 15-year period? 26% went to the richest 1%. Yeah? So, the increase in wealth in UK during this 2000 to 2015 period, of that increase, 1/4 went to the richest 1%. Yeah? 7% went to the poorest 50%. Yeah? So, the disparities significantly increase. Yeah? So, we looked at global distribution of wealth, we looked at heavy consumers of information technology, digital technologies, we looked at wealth, ownership, growth benefits in those geographies. This is where we are. Yeah? We are doing, we have done a bit better, but in terms of hunger, we are still about 100 in a world ranking of 118. This is how our IT industry has grown over the last 25 years. Yeah? Very impressive numbers. Yeah? So, our IT industry has grown pretty well, but we have concerns like hunger, we have concerns like malnutrition and various other concerns. I am sure all of you are aware of some of our development concerns that exist. Yeah? But we are sitting in an area which is known for its IT capabilities. Yeah? We are at least producing IT. Yeah? So, this is production of IT and to a certain extent a very weak type of correlation to say certain development indicators. The earlier 2-3 slides were on consumption of IT, and what has consumption of IT. Again, I'm not, these are very weak correlations that we are trying to do, because I have not done them. And what does it do to wealth concentration? Yeah? So, initial feelers, but there are more empirical works which suggest that the current way in which IT is being produced and consumed is not leading to the kind of development priorities we have set for ourselves as a global community or as a nation. Yeah? So, the current global production system, including of digital technology products, is highly skewed towards the wealthy, both individuals and nations. Yeah? So, that detour, but we'll come back to that once we bring everything together. Some perspectives on technology design. I will not get into technology because this has been discussed, but we are referring to, I think by now we are more or less in agreement with what we are trying to see. Now, when we look at technology, there is one strand of the entire technology studies which says that technology is deterministic. Yeah? And when we say it is deterministic, we say that its evolution is deterministic. It is going to, so artificial intelligence is going to take over the world. That is a deterministic claim. Yeah? When we say that, oh, jobs are going to go away, these are deterministic claims. Yeah? Unless we qualify it further, artificial intelligence of this form applied in this context is going to say make these kinds of jobs redundant, unless we get into the black box of that statement, deconstruct it, so that we have opportunities to analyze what could be the various choices that can be exercised. We are making highly deterministic claims about technology evolution, technology designs, and this is This has gained significance in the case of digital technologies, largely because of something that has more or less stood the test of time over the last 50 years. And what is that? Moore's law. So, Moore's law has, Gordon Moore was one of the initial chip inventors, and he had suggested something on what will happen to computing power in the world, and that has more or less stood the test of time. And because of that, there is an increasing say or something like that has been appropriated by a lot of other technology designers, vendors, to suggest that there is an inherent logic to how technologies advance, and the people who have to consume it, they have to they just have to, it's not a question of whether, it's a question of when. Yeah. So, that's the kind of arguments that come out of this strand of looking at technology. But then apart from that, and because it has not found to hold for a lot of other contexts, there is this way of looking at technology, which is called social shaping of technology, and the desire is that we will democratize technology, we will free it of some of these claims that are being made, often by those who have or those who are at a higher position of power in the entire technology value chain. Yeah? And because they do not want to subject themselves to scrutiny, they take deterministic claims. Yeah? So, when IBM or Google or Microsoft makes those claims, yeah, they are at a higher level in the value chain. They do not want their algorithms to be subjected to scrutiny by a village accountant in Tumkur, yeah, or by a property buyer in Bangalore, and therefore, they want to make claims like that. And there is a need to democratize technology. Yeah? And when we say democratize technology, we say at least you should be able to understand what is going inside. So, the algorithms, we should be able to understand what has gone into building that algorithm, what kind of data has gone into training a particular AI application, etc. Yeah? And that is where it is coming from. So, it says how does social, institutional, economic and cultural factors shape the direction as well as the rate of innovation, the form of technology and the outcomes of technological change. Yeah? So, this is saying that it is not a black box. Yeah? There are choices that are exercised by people while developing, designing technologies, and those choices should be made known to more and more people who are to be affected by consuming that technology. Yeah? So, where does all of this bring us to? The last one, technologies. We are increasingly realizing as students of technology that technologies can be socially shaped. Yeah? And even in case of our PDS example, in case of our other examples, we did see that depending on what is of value in that social context, a particular choice can be made about technologies. Yeah? So, it can be socially shaped. Okay, this we have not come to. So, just forget the middle portion, this one. The existing approach to designing digital technologies for use by the Indian state demonstrates elements of elite capture. Yeah, some of you who are looking at development studies, etc., I am sure you would have come across this term. The existing attempts is trying to demonstrate that when it says that the village accountants are most corrupt, when it says that the fair price shop owners are the most inefficient. Yeah? So, when it makes those kinds of claims, yeah, there is a reflection of the elite in Delhi, in Bangalore, yeah, the more educated, not only within the government, but also some of these supporters of the current state in the corporate, in the academia, all of that, yeah, they are coming together and trying to influence what kind of technology design should happen in this case. Yeah. So, what should we do? I am sorry, I could not change this, but technologies can be shaped, and the current attempts are leading to elite capture. So, what should we do? And we also saw that in that detour that the existing production logic of digital technologies is making the rich richer, individuals as well as nations, and some of the countries which are not as rich like ours, we still have, while we are producing, we are not consuming as much, and maybe some of the reasons for our hunger, malnutrition, education concerns are not taken care of. Yeah. So, what should we do? What should we do in terms of our technology designs? So, we will go to economics. So, we should go to we should look up to other disciplines. So, Amit Bhadre is a development economist, and this is what he has to say. An objective which combines participatory democracy for the people, especially the poor people of our country, with a high rate of pro-poor growth. Yeah, that is what the Prime Minister was saying, participation of the people. This is what our 12th plan was saying, high inclusive growth. Yeah. So, when we have to combine participatory democracy for the people, when we have to get more and more people participate into our governance and technology design decisions, while we also want a high rate of pro-poor growth to be sustained over time. Yeah, we are, and that is what we want to do, yeah, through our technology designs, yeah, as a nation, as a community. Anyone who does not want to do this? We do, yeah, more or less. Now, given that, what is it that we should be doing? The essence lies in our ability to define an economic role for the poorest and the most disadvantaged, both as a producer and a consumer. Yeah. So, we want them not only to consume, so we should not be looking at them only from C.K. Prahlad's bottom of the pyramid consumer say perspective, but we also need to bring them or make them producers and participate in the growth process. Yeah. The poor would not be passive receivers of doles, but active contributors to the process of development. Yeah. So, that is something that Amit Bhadre says, and I feel that this could be one of the ways we can adopt when we are designing technologies. Yeah. So, if digital technologies were to play a role in achieving the Indian state's agenda of development and good governance and SDGs in general in India and across the world, some tall claims is what I am making here, but I think it is okay. At least it will trigger some discussion. I hope I will be countered by some of you here. The design approach and production logic will have to change. Yeah. The production logic today is highly skewed. It has to change, and it has to change to include more and more people in the production value chain. Designs will have to be more appreciative of local context, peoples, their needs and their rights and entitlements. Yeah. And maybe shift towards something what Professor Srisha Rao was talking about, co-creation, participatory design teams, going back to notions of appropriate technology. Yeah. That could possibly be a way to go. Yeah. Do we have any precedents? Yes, we do. we had something like this about 100 years back. Yes, I expect some frowns and some strong arguments against using this here. Yes? But this was a very powerful technology that was employed about 100 years back, and that had and that went beyond, and that I feel incorporated some of the elements that we talked about later, yeah, and that brought about a lot of change in terms of what we wanted to bring about at that point in time, yeah, because we are not, at least this is what Gandhiji said, the spirit is service, it is not exploitation, yeah, and we want production, we want more and more people to get involved in the production value chain, yeah, so that the skewed values that currently attribute or that currently accrue to people and nations, yeah, gets distributed more evenly, because that is what, as a community, as a global community, as a nation, most of us as individuals strive for. We want equity, yeah, we differently, Janki was talking about equity, we want a fair and just society, yeah, may not be equal, we may not of us may want everyone to have the same access to resources, but at least social norms and processes to be fair and equitable, yeah. There has to be something like that, yeah. So this is what I had. Thank you very much. Any questions? I think we have run out of time, but any questions? Yes.
So not all inclusive, participating decision production of kind of as in becoming producers of design and participating. So according to the example that you gave of Charkha, that is very highlighting. But the thing is that there the infrastructure required or the literacy kind of thing required for the job was really minimal. But do you think the same kind of approach will be applicable to such infrastructure need and the literacy kind of thing as computational technologies?
So the competition was with a similar kind of Watson at that point in time. Yeah, at that point in time in Manchester, you had big mills. Yeah, you had steam, you had everything else there. Now at that point in time, a similar question would have, I am sure, come to a lot of people. Can we actually compete? Is that the only, and a deterministic approach would say, oh, that's the way to go. Yeah, there are power looms, there are big factories, this is the production system, and that's the way to go. But then when you had a socio-political, economic, cultural answer, which was put together, it was not a pure, say, technology solution. Yeah, it was a all-encompassing contextual approach that was suggested. You were able to find something like a Charkha. You may be able to find something like a Charkha equivalent today. In fact, there is a very interesting book. Again, it draws a lot from some of Gandhi's and other Buddhist thoughts, which is a book by Schumacher. It's called Small is Beautiful. Yeah. So I'll suggest you go through what Schumacher says. Yeah. So that again suggests that when you're looking at technology designs, yeah, you should consider some of these factors. Yeah. Sometimes what happens is we, as nations, we start to believe that we'll do well if we behave as a good corporation. Yeah. And there are a lot of differences between what a corporation is about, what a profit-making enterprise is about, and what the nation is about. And so one of the basic differences is the issue of wages. Yeah. For a corporation, profit-making enterprise, wages is cost. That's not true for a nation. We want more and more people to be employed, to be paid better. Yeah, for national economy to do well, we don't look at wages as a nation as cost, but as a profit making enterprise, we will look at wages as cost, which has to be minimized. As a nation, we would want wages to be maximized. Yeah? So sometimes when we break ourselves free from some of these notions of deterministic ways in which societies, technologies have to move, we may not be able to look beyond certain aspects. Yeah? But there can be, why not? Like if that's too big a concern for us, let's look at certain technology designs which are decentralized enough, which factor in the capacities that exist in local communities and take it forward from there. There's nothing to suggest that knowledge search can only happen through a central database, which Google has access to. Yeah? There can be various ways in which you can search knowledge, you can create knowledge. Yeah? Again, there is nothing to suggest empirically that given all this access to information, the knowledge creation process in the world has accelerated. And when I say knowledge, I don't say patents and say those filings. I say knowledge in the sense that it leads to making certain changes in the way people live. That probably has not. Yeah? So, we need to question.
So, another question on the role of the state. So, right now, with all the advances that are happening in AI, machine learning, etc., so you have a scenario where a lot of jobs and roles could become redundant. Banking, even with things like autonomous cars, right, entire categories of jobs could be eliminated. The question I have is there a role for the state to play, or is it just, hey, let the markets decide what to do and let those people figure out what to do? Because the one articles I've seen is now they call them the frightful five. Google, Facebook, Amazon, who have an outsized impact, who have more power and information in some cases between entire states.
So, the state has a role to play. Yes, the state has a role to play, and when people say that this is what is going to happen, we need to, and that's what I was referring to earlier. When these claims are being made, we have to sit back and try to understand who is making these claims. Yeah, is Google making this claim, and how much should we consider Google as a valid upholder of human dignity or development the way we would want it to be? If we do, then we should listen to them. If we don't, and if we feel that the village panchayat is a better decider of what is development, yeah, then we should, the state should come in to say that no, we will not listen to you Google, whatever worth you have in international market, but we will listen to this village panchayat and the village council. That is where the state comes in.
So technology ramifications aside.
Yes, and that's and many a times these claims are deterministic claims, and they are made to ensure that you are holier than the cow. Yeah? You are not subject to scrutiny. Yeah? So, if we step back and say, okay, so what? Is this what we want to do? Do we want our people to have jobs? If we want that as a valid development priority, we will just not, there will be a regulation which will say any technology which takes away a job in this way, we are not going to support it. And as a regulator, you say, oh, we will have 200% tax on that. You do not give export promotion benefits if you feel that your software exports is leading to longer term deterioration in the skills, in the innovative skills of your industry. Yeah? So, there is a lot of ways in which the state comes in, because what the state can look at, private profit making corporations cannot. And one of the examples, I do not know you were here or not, was that something as simple as wages is cost for a corporation, is investment for the nation. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.